So as the story goes, the Leeds family lived in a small home down in the Pine Barrens.
He probably would have been very active on Twitter these days. And he had some kind of dispute with one of the members of the belief in the paranormal will always have and always will have real effects on the world, regardless of someone's beliefs about whether or not it exists. So it was the site of one of the world's worst prison disasters. It is also there was these three men that had hatched a plan to escape. They planted a bomb in their cell and lit the fuse with the intention of it going off while they were at lunch, while everyone was like in the cafeteria, and they would bust out. This is a newspaper clipping that was, it's a very pretty sounding bell for that, you know? But this right here is a newspaper clipping from a newspaper that's... So this one specifically is associated with a woman in white haunting. I don't know if you're familiar with that phenomenon.
Now the story with that death mask is though.
So this mask belonged to a woman. She was engaged, a young couple, madly in love, and eventually she passed away, and her fiance, he was completely distraught. So this was brought into us by a mother and daughter in the area who would play Scrabble on this board like every night. There's even a whole festival for it along one of the stops on the route. Now, this lamp right here is really interesting. It has a really cool story around it that we're gonna... The light bulb is a little bit more of an orangey warm glow, so it is a little bit of a different shade of light, but it's at least still... They'd come in and the carriage would be in a different spot. They would hear laughter coming from that room. Something to keep in mind, these longer journeys and these bigger ships were kind of a big part of the cultural consciousness at the time, but...
Wow.
So, this one I think is super neat. Esque piece of art made and weave in a bit of their hair and whatnot. But yeah, so if you want to make your way over here. However, do you remember that lamp with the tarot cards that we were looking at before?
Yep.
How it had like that kind of oily sheen to it? That was on his wife's nightstand during the fire. She was in bed when the fire happened. We kind of infer that potentially those are lipids from her skin that had, caked onto the cards. Now, soon after bringing that in, we have an SLS camera right here, which, picks up where figures are and kind of, or, like with like older phones, they'd go to put a call through to one part of the building and it would go through to his room. And it was just kind of like, everyone always kind of read it as like, oh, John's messing with us, whatever. Kind of like a nicer thing in a way. And, eventually, a new principal took over who did not have like any kind of connection to this guy. He had never met him, so the office was repurposed for something else. And one of his old coworkers took home all of his effects. She would hear the tapping of the keys going on in her garage all the time, and eventually she was like, "John, I can't do this anymore, man." So she brought it here, and for a while we would very consistently hear tapping of the keys happening really often. And one night Kathy was up here, and she like caught it red-handed in a way. She was like right near it, right behind her, and she could hear it clear as day right behind her. She turns around, and the keys weren't moving at all. But the sound was coming, which I think is interesting, because my initial instinct would be to assume, okay, something is manipulating the keys to make them move and do this. But the idea of it just being like an auditory echo is not really what I personally would have assumed, which I think is really neat.
Yeah.
This over here, this is our Hall of Occult and Ritual Magic Artifacts.
Nice.
This is my bread and butter.
Mm-hmm.
So, this right here, we have a few different voodoo vests. Have gotten a lot of reports of seeing a black cat walking around the building. Just kind of doing normal black cat things.
It's crazy.
I could have sworn I saw it a couple weeks ago. I do keep in mind though, I have a lot of hair and my hair is black, so could have been anything, but we did have a woman just a few weeks ago say to us, hey, do you have any animals in the building? And we told her no. And she said, okay, I think a stray cat might have got in from off the street or something because I just saw a cat walking around. And looked all around, we haven't found it. So that's pretty neat. Mystical powers, I think there's something really neat about that. Something that I think is also very interesting about them is in terms of older European folklore, specifically around the medieval time, we have seen a lot of them kind of trickle down into a more modernized version. Hands of Glory, not really. They've been kind of left in the past. They felt like they were almost a trickle down from Mesopotamian culture to medieval time, and then they kind of petered out. That's just my personal thoughts. I love this stuff. That right there is a shrunken head.
Is that a real one?
Tourist head. That means it's made out of a goat. So, because, can't exactly go around buying human heads anymore.
Yeah.
But the whole belief surrounding them was during tribal warfare, if you kill a powerful warrior, strip the skin from the skull, sew the eyes and mouth shut, and put hot rocks inside of it, it would then constrict and you would absorb the power of that warrior. As warfare slowed down, tourism picked up, and some folks were going there to buy them as a souvenir with no concept of what it was about.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stories of people going there with the intention of buying one and leaving as one. Yeah. I don't know the exact story about this arm specifically. I know this also came from a medical specimen. This right here, I believe, is just a representation of the cultural impact of the whole Blair Witch Project thing and the way that just kind of put the occult, like, in terms of occult magic specifically, into the cultural consciousness in a way that it hasn't been in a long time.
This is obviously a voodoo thing.
Yes, this is really neat. This is a newer artifact. This was, there was a man in the area who was a psychic as well as a super, super avid occult researcher and collector. He would even be, he was very often, like, we got all his case files. He would, like, be brought in as a psychic for, like, criminal investigations and things like that. He did automatic writing a lot. We found an automatic writing conversation. And what appears to be deliberate choice in color, as well as it seems like they were using the inside of it as almost like a pestle, like a mortar and pestle almost. This feels a lot more credible to me compared to this. Just given the not being able to look at it and be like, AXP, what does that mean? Or deliberately two different colors. This feels more... Also, the spacing between the letters feels more deliberate. All of these things, I'm sure you're aware, the geometric nature of it, the arbitrary nature of the letters, the seemingly deliberate use of different colors. This feels more like there was a little bit more of a legitimate practice behind it compared to, like, Devil, in my opinion.
Yeah.
This, though, undoubtedly the real deal. This is a Pyomeambe cauldron, otherwise known as an Nganga. This we do ask people to refrain from touching, this one specifically. We refer to this as probably our most haunted artifact. So pretty much the whole, Payamayambe is a Afro-Cuban magical practice. It's neither black magic nor white magic. It doesn't really concern itself with those types of things.
It is actually considered the dark cousin of Santeria.
That is true. That is true.
Yeah.
Yep, I have heard that before. I'm pretty sure from the perspective of practitioners of Payamayambe, though, they don't view it as such. A lot of similarities to Santeria, though. So, pretty much the whole belief with these cauldrons would be that you would take sticks, animal bones, rocks, and a bit of human remains, put them into the cauldron, and usually the remains would be got through...
robbing cemeteries.
Yep, robbing cemeteries, exactly. Thank you, sorry, lost my words for a moment. Now, this, the whole belief would be that you would then be able to bind the spirit of the person's remains you put into this, or sometimes, there are other variations of these, but that's like kind of the standard. This was found, again, in a public park in New Jersey at some kind of crime scene. I don't know the specifics. But that police officer grabbed this, and he looked at this, and hands down, he had seen that nun. He was like, I don't know. Saw the devil's skull. I don't know. He saw this. He went, this is the real deal. No doubt in my brain. So he held on to it, took it home so that he could show new police officers on the force what a real ritual site looks like. And by the belief, that would have then made him the owner of that spirit. He really honestly believed that it was a young woman's spirit attached to it. And he never asked anything of her, but he felt like it looked out for him. Eventually he got engaged, and his new wife said, you gotta get rid of the cauldron. I want to marry someone that has something this cool, but that's just me personally. So he brought it here, which would then, by proxy, make Kathy the owner of the spirit. On a purely ethical level, we don't ask anything of it, ever.
You should liberate it.
Me personally, if it was my museum, I would maybe interact with things on that level a little bit more. I think Kathy is more in the business of preserving, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
As opposed to interacting. I think she's more primarily a historian in terms of, education.
Yeah.
Which,
So these sticks are called palo sticks.
Yep.
Palo sticks, yeah. So it is a specific wood that they use.
Exactly, yeah, no, so definitely a little bit more specifics to it than, sometimes, a lot of times, especially in this hallway, the way I'm used to telling the stories is I tend to do broad strokes a little bit more, because a lot of people are either very turned away from this aspect of the tour, or I personally am very interested in it, so sometimes I'll go off on a tangent, and I try to reel it in a little bit, but, so...
Oh, yeah.
I don't actually know anything in that case, personally.
That's a sigil. It's a Goetia sigil of some sort.
Oh, I didn't even see it. Yeah, you're right.
Yep.
So, the story with this, though, is... I don't know if you ever really spent much... I don't know if you've been to Asbury before. Okay, so it's a...
Oh, what's with the desk here?
That I actually don't know. That is a newer artifact that got brought in here. I'm pretty sure it's related. I'm pretty sure it's an artifact, and not just something in here. Couldn't
Yeah.
think of a better way to word that.
Yeah. That's pretty cool, though.
Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it. It's always nice having someone that is clearly as excited about this stuff as I am. So I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah. No problem.
Apparently, a young man died in a car crash, and a police officer went to take a picture of the car soon after he died, and it picked, what appeared to be his face, screaming above the car, which is pretty neat.
Wow. Yeah, I see that. My goodness. Yep. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely a weird one.